Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
You got a beautiful body.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, is it party time, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's party time.
Is it party time for us and our beautiful bodies?
It is. That's exactly what it is. It is. It's such a beautiful body. And now here's the other thing. Now you're looking fine. That's the other thing that I wanted to throw out.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking fine.
Yes.
It's party time for this beautiful body of mine. Wait, no, that's actually better writing than what that song says.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the worst of all possible worlds, where we, the hosts, our guest, and you, the listeners, all have one beautiful body.
So true.
It is a horrible, writhing mass, but it's gorgeous.
Yes.
I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. And if you were a little lost as to why we were complimenting each other on our beautiful bodies, I mean, first of all,
because we're just fantastic.
because we're gorgeous, but
Yeah.
it's also because this week we went through and played what I think is the worst video game I've ever played for this show.
Yes.
A game that includes all sorts of interesting stuff, including but not limited to an unbelievably annoying and catchy song that will never leave your head once you've heard it a single time. We, of course, are talking about David Cage's 2011 magnum opus, Beyond Two Souls.
And joining us today, our guest this week is probably the person who has appeared the most on this podcast that isn't named Brian, Josh, or AJ.
Whoa.
Yeah, he hosts the TTRPG YouTube series Bonus Action, which is heading into its third season this fall. He's also the person I bully into playing terrible video games with me. Please welcome my friend and yours, David Armstrong. Hello, David.
Oh, hello. I'm the worst of all possible Davids and the heaviest of all possible Rains.
Yes!
That's
Heavy
right, because
rain.
you were on episode, what is it, 14?
That was a
of this
long,
show? I was
long
still
time
in New
ago.
Mexico.
Yes, you
You
were.
were just little podcast fetuses, and now I am here to check in on you.
Yeah, well, you did also check in for our How I Met Your Mother episode, which was episode 50-something or so. And
Yeah.
now you are back here because we cannot play a David Cage game without consulting a David.
Yeah, or a cage.
Yes, we apologize on both fronts for this, but this is Beyond Two Souls.
This is beyond understanding, beyond any human comprehension. This is truly, Josh, as you were saying, one of the worst games we've ever covered on
Yeah.
this podcast.
I
it's
have
the worst.
spent years trying to get you fuckers to play this thing. And you'd be like, no, let's get the next Remedy piece of shit, until we played Alan Wake 2 and actually liked it. And
Yes.
I was genuinely mad at you guys for so long. And I was like, if we do not play this game in 2025, I will hurt someone close to you.
Okay, I want to throw in at you then, Brian.
Yeah.
Why did you want me to play this? Because
Be-
I like we have had our disagreements, obviously,
Yeah.
doing this show over the
Yeah.
years. Me, you, Brian, David, not so much. You're fine. I appreciate
Thank you so much.
David was the one close to you who I was going to hurt, and then you hurt
Oh,
him by
okay.
making him play the game. So it all works out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There we go.
all I'm going to say is you are both so lucky that we are not recording together in person today. Because if we were, it would be on fucking sight. This was horrible.
That's why, though. I mean, just to say, that's why. It's because it's that fucking bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what a horror to discover that I own the steelbook for this game. I do not remember purchasing
What is
it.
wrong with? Because you weren't a heavy rain head like I was.
No,
Because that was the whole thing. Was like, I actually liked Heavy Rain the first time that I played it.
Right.
And then the second time I played it was like, oh no, what else about me is this bad?
Well, I mean, the thing is that I had such a great time playing Heavy Rain with David that I thought it would be equally like fun to experience Beyond Two Souls with David. So
Sure.
we got the game for the PS3 and we played it, and we got to, I think, the level where it turns into a survival horror game briefly, the containment or whatever.
Yeah, the one where it becomes Control. Yeah.
The one where it briefly becomes Control. And we were both like, this is really boring. We're going to stop. And that's where we kind of dropped the game. And it was only for this episode that I actually finished the game. And David, I know you also, this was your first time finishing it as well.
I watched you play up to the condenser. I bailed so much sooner. I bailed when I played it. I bailed at the embassy, Elliot Page is sitting in the bathroom, and I went, I don't care. The stakes could not be lower. Did you guys? We had an extra feature though. Playing this time around, did you play in chronological order or did you play in the original intended order?
Oh yeah, so this game, when they re-released it for PS4 and it's also available on PlayStation 5, they did Mitch Hurwitz mode.
Yes.
Right? Because Mitch Hurwitz is a fucking coward, and he took the masterpiece that is Arrested Development Season 4 and re-released it in chronological order with reams of Ron Howard narration to glue it all together.
Right.
Beyond Two Souls, I guess, did the same thing. I played it in original order, but this game throws these different modes at you right at the beginning. They talk so much in their behind the scenes stuff about how they want it to be like approachable for people who've never played games before, and it's immediately like 1 player or 2. Normal mode or chronological mode? Do you want to play it on a controller or on a phone app? Because you can do that for some reason, except it doesn't fucking work anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't quite fit the screen, right? You were showing us how.
Yeah, it's called Beyond Touch.
Oh no, I don't like
and
that.
you open it up, and
name.
it's like square. It doesn't fill up the whole phone screen. I'm showing it to the guys right now.
Funny.
That's a nightmare.
But you can somehow, on PlayStation 3 at least, hook it up to your PlayStation 3 and control it from there. And also the 2-player mode, it should be said, is sort of like Super Mario Brothers 2-player mode, where it uses 2 controllers, or a controller and a phone app.
If you want.
But you can't do anything simultaneously. None of that's not programmed into the game.
No, so it's basically you hit triangle and it passes off to the other controller and it lights up different colors as like who's in control at a time. It is so boring. David, I don't know if you remember this, but when we first played the game, we tried duo mode for like a mission, and the whole thing is that Jody doesn't do anything fun. Right. So it's like whoever's playing Aiden, whoever is usually like the player 2 slot, is going to
float
have
around. You get to knock stuff over.
You get to get motion sick.
It's not like Jody. That's one of the conceits of the story. It's not like Jody is doing things simultaneously. So there's no it's worse than Super Mario Brothers Galaxy because in Super Mario's Galaxy at least you're collecting star bits while Mario's running around. Like that's actually kind of fun.
Right.
It's such a lazy way to play video games, but it's such a great time waster.
It's such a good little sibling mode. Whereas I don't think you want to be playing Beyond Two Souls with like your 4-year-old sibling.
I mean, I don't want to be playing Beyond Two Souls, period, but you made me.
Yeah, well, see, David Cage wants to like expand video games to like include the mass audience of people who don't play video games, but he also only wants to make video games for adult stories for adults.
For very stupid adults.
Yes. The idea for 2-player mode, I think, is to get like your partner or in David Cage's mind, your girlfriend, your heterosexual girlfriend, to sit on the couch
because
with
you as
and
player
play.
1 are a woman and you are dating a heterosexual woman.
Yes.
It's just what happens sometimes.
You're a woman and you're dating a heterosexual woman?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I've seen it done.
It's progressive.
I've done it myself.
They're roommates, Josh.
Got it.
They're just roommates.
I mean, I guess to that point of being adults, we're all adults here, but it should be noted
Allegedly.
that this game contains a great deal of adult content, which is handled in the most nuanced, delicate, mature way that you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Yes.
So with that said, obviously, if you have discomfort around suicide, sexual assault, and anything like that, just so you know, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be
talking about a game that handles all of that so incredibly poorly.
Unbelievably poorly.
Yes. And when we get to those chapters, we will also give a call out right before we dive into it.
It's also racist.
Yeah, that's true.
The game is
got
also
everything.
incredibly
It's got it all.
racist. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, not great to moms of children either. So
if you're a mother of a child,
don't let if you sit down and listen to this podcast with your mom, don't do it for this one. Your mom's gonna be mad.
If you're mothering right now, don't
if you're
listen
the movie
to this.
Mother.
that's if your roommate is mother. So speaking of mother, Let's talk about a very normal guy, David Cage, shall we? He was born in Mulhouse, France in 1956, not Canada.
Okay. So I always bring up on this show that David Cage is French Canadian, and people have always corrected me that no, he's actually from France. Well, sorry, I don't ascribe to your race science. I look at the heart, and that man has the dark heart of a Quebecois, and everyone knows it. You can see it all the time. I was just reading a post.
I agree.
Somalia is featured in this game incredibly, and there's a Somalian guy who went on Reddit, and he's like, what the fuck? There's so many Somalian people in Canada. Couldn't he have just, talked to anyone nearby? And then they're like, no, he's in France. And he's like, well, that's closer to Somalia.
It is funny how, like, in an interview I read with David Cage, how much they go into like this whole section about tax breaks. And he says how much easier it would be to make a video game if he were to make one in Canada versus France, because the tax breaks are so much better for video games in Canada, which is why you have so many Canadian games flooding the market.
They have a ton of Canadian voice actors on these games, which is another source of confusion. And now Quantic Dream does apparently have a studio in Canada.
But David Cage, for his part, got his first job in the music industry, and he was 14 years old. And in 1994, at the age of 25, he decides he's had enough with this whole music shenanigans, and he begins writing what would become Omicron the Nomad Soul in his downtime. He hires 5 friends to basically make the game because Cage doesn't know how to code. He just has written a 200-page document that he just gives to them and it's like, here, make a game.
This game features David Bowie because I think that was his connections with the music industry was getting Bowie involved. But that's like the only reason people know about this game at all.
I have a quote here from David Cage that I would like our resident Canadian David to read, if you don't mind. I'm going to highlight it right.
Excuse me. You mean our guest, David Armstrong? He's French. He's European French.
That's right.
Oh.
5 of my friends I had hired and paid. I wanted this to run like a real company. You come in on time, you do your work, you go home, you have a salary. Yes, we were friends, but the thing I had to make clear was at the office, I was the boss.
You see, David Cage, he's actually from New Orleans, vaguely, and won't go any further into his past. Yeah.
Don't really.
He loves to sell blue jeans in San Francisco.
But you can already see from that quote, right? Like the controlling nature of this man and like the way that he's like, yeah, I started this business with my friends, but they're my employees. I am putting up all my own money into this. I own them now.
It's such a weird thing to say. It's like, yeah, I started a business with my friends. That's all you have to say. And it's, or you can say, and then, it becomes business and you have to deal with it that way. But he's like, immediately goes into, but I am the boss.
Yeah.
I must make them buy me the baguette.
I mean, that's how I run this show, essentially. Yeah. I just, every single time one of you doesn't show up on time, I get really, really upset. Nobody mentioned that please nobody say that I was 20 to 25 minutes late for this recording. That didn't happen.
AJ was like tracking Josh on Discord and he was like, I saw that he put down Beyond Two Souls, and now he's playing Blueprints. Why isn't he in the meeting?
After 6 months of spending his own money, David Cage is able to sell the game to Eidos Interactive.
Eidos, by the way, Montreal-based publisher. Just wanted to throw that out there as well.
You go.
So
and
it makes sense.
And also at this time, Eidos had just come off of making Tomb Raider. So they had more money than God. Like they picked him up in a limo. They took him to a football match that night. They had his contract signed within 24 hours of him being in England. They had it translated entirely from English to French. Like they were really in the business of just like signing people with like can-do attitudes. And I think maybe his connections with the music industry was also something that piqued their interest. But either way, Omicron the Nomad Soul, again starring David Bowie, releases in 1999 for the PC and in 2000 for the Dreamcast to mostly mediocre reviews. And I found this one from IGN's Jeffrey Dunham that, Brian, I would love for you to read for us.
Jeff Dunham with the puppets?
That's right. Yeah, no, this bit was written in character as Ahmed the Dead Terrorist.
Oh, no.
And Brian's going to do it.
I'm going to do the voice.
Yeah.
In the spirit of David Cage and Jeff Dunham. No, so a title that lets you do the coconut jiggle with your woman in the first 15 minutes can't be too bad, right? Nope. Not entirely, but it does have its problems. I love that video game critics up until 2012 had never had sex.
Not a single time.
Coconut jiggle is a sex euphemism?
It makes the boobs.
It's like a boob is like a coconut, and then you can jiggle it like you do with both boobs
like
and
you do
coconuts.
with coconuts and with boobs.
Is that just what it is? It's just the game had jiggle physics? Is that what he's talking about
I don't even
here?
think it's jiggle physics. I think it's just that there's a sex scene.
In the first 15 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again,
you
this
make
is
them coconuts jiggle.
I pull this out just because games criticism has evolved a lot since then, but also like this was the year 2000 and this was just fine to be published. So
The whole field of writing games and writing about games has gone beyond Two Souls where it was before.
That's true.
It's gone beyond Jeff Dunham, who you would argue is Two Souls, a puppeteer and a puppet.
That's right.
yes, yes.
It's all coming together.
Aiden, control Ahmed the dead terrorist, Aiden. Make his mouth move.
The infraworld, I kill you. It's the only Ahmed I'm doing. Don't ever ask me to do it again.
I don't think you ever need to. I think that's it.
It's preserved forever now.
Yeah. I mean, he was a pretty good critic, but it wasn't anywhere near as good as when Senor Wenthes reviewed Space War.
Give us a taste. Give us a taste.
He'd talk to the his hand and he'd be like, "Do you want to play the game?" No. Yes. No. Yes. No.
And it's the worst because it's written out. It's written out on IGN. Just back
you
and
really
forth.
lose
the longest
pace.
article. So Cage pitches his next game to Atari, who end up publishing Fahrenheit, or Indigo Prophecy, as it's known in the States, a name that Cage considers to be fucking stupid.
Yeah, it has been re-released as Fahrenheit: Indigo Prophecy, one of the many two-word titles of Quantic Dream's oeuvre.
Really understand what it's about now.
And I knew that we would have to do like 3 of these in order to sort of get to Detroit Become Human.
Right, like you can't just we did Heavy Rain really early on. We couldn't just do Detroit. So I had to make everyone slog through this fucking thing first.
Right, because Fahrenheit, there's just not enough there, right?
I think there's enough there storytelling-wise.
There's
but
not enough there in height.
Yes, Josh.
In that. There's not enough there in height.
Now can you make the same joke with a puppet?
There's not enough there in height.
Oh.
For those who don't watch Josh on the traditional Scrunch stream, he has a little stuffed lobster on his microphone that is called White Santa.
Yes.
But Indigo Prophecy, I think, is kind of interesting as a story because of
it's about climate change.
Insanely stupid it is. However, it's unplayable. Right? The benefit to a Quantic Dream game, the last 3 at least, is that there's no fail state. You keep going.
Right.
Whereas Indigo Prophecy has death, it has health bars, it has a lives counter, so you get game overs and then you have to go back 2 hours to the beginning of the fucking chapter and walk slowly across large areas. It is so unpleasant to play that I just don't think it would be worth doing. If someone wants to give us a lot of money just to cover Indigo Prophecy, we'll do it, but that's why I wanted to cover these games, because it's anyone can get through them. They just have to fight against their own soul in order to do it.
Or 2 of them, potentially.
Yeah.
Also, David Cage, if you're listening to this and you want to do a little SpawnCon with us, let us know.
Yeah.
We'll do anything for money.
After Indigo Prophecy comes out, it's actually a pretty big hit in the States, especially compared to fucking Omicron, which sold no units, right?
Yeah, well, Omicron was a Windows and Dreamcast game. And then, of course, the Dreamcast collapsed.
Can you do the coconut jiggle with your woman in the first 15 minutes of Fahrenheit?
No, because you're escaping a bathroom in the first 15 minutes of Fahrenheit.
Right. No, you don't fuck until the end of the game when you are dead. You are a corpse.
Yeah. Brother!
You are a living corpse walking around, and a lady's like, I want to fuck that.
Hell yeah.
That cold, clammy body.
And then those coconuts, they jiggle.
They're jiggling.
Let me tell you, they're jiggling akimbo. So
Akimbo?
They're never akimbo.
Yeah, they're all over the place. Yeah. So then David Cage pitches Heavy Rain, what is going to be his magnum opus, to Sony. They take him on because they see an opportunity to refine their own graphical technology in the same way that they did with like Last of Us 2 with the rope physics and things. They see opportunities to like push their technology forward, and they're going to use these games in order to do it.
This is something that somebody mentioned when we did our episode about The Last of Us Part 2, is that a lot of game studios, when it comes to that visual technology stuff, they're not necessarily just developing it for themselves. In some cases, they're also building stuff for other studios, because there will be another studio that contracts with them for like billable hours. And so they might need to build a piece of tech as a piece of support for a game that somebody else is making. And that's the thing with these engines, like the Quantic Dream engine, like the Naughty Dog engine. They're used to do more than just make these games.
Yeah, and that's why these games, Last of Us and Heavy Rain and etc., have a lot of things that you do like one time. You're like, why was that in here? Part of that is that David Cage is a lunatic, and every one of his games has stuff like that, where it's like, what if we just do this now? But yeah, another part of it is because you can develop something, figure out how the physics of it works or some other aspect of its mechanics, and then sell it on its merry way. And Heavy Rain did pretty well. I infamously liked it quite a lot. It even got an update once PlayStation 3 made its like Move controllers to compete with the Wii and the Kinect. But like Heavy Rain figured out, okay, we want to make these things more like movies. That's always been the goal from Omicron.
And that fits well into the portfolio of a publisher like Sony that has always pitched itself as being more adult than its competition.
Well, and the other thing, too, is that it's like we are getting rid of all of the other traditional gamey elements. There are no lives. There's not this like sanity/health meter thing going on. The game just goes forward no matter what. Even if you're chasing a guy through a grocery store and you run into every single obstacle, it's going to keep moving forward until people make fun of it enough. And then they're going to patch in a little window that says, you fucked up, start over. Very abruptly if you hit every obstacle.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
You know, because in Heavy Rain, too, once you get to the end, the many characters that you're playing as can either figure out who the origami killer is or not, or they can even die or not, and the game keeps going. So the final scene plays out differently depending on who is alive, who is dead, who's figured it out, and who hasn't figured it out.
Right. And Beyond Two Souls looked at that and was like, what if we did that for only like the last 3 chapters of the game?
What if we just remade Indigo Prophecy, but way more boring, but we got 2 big movie stars?
Yes, because again, David Cage, I think, fundamentally hates the art of video games. I think he hates the form of it, and I think that all he really wants to do is be a filmmaker, but he doesn't have the talent to do it. Because if you were to use any of the shots that you see in Beyond on like an actual movie screen, you would throw up. This thing jumps the 180 at every single opportunity. I was so motion sick for like the first 3 hours of playing this game. I mean, a large part of that is because there's this blur that you cannot turn off.
You can on PC.
You can on PC. And I watched it on PC, and then it had the opposite thing of just like the camera was still moving all over the place and everything was too clear. That
and the camera just feels bad. It doesn't like to move. When you move it, it likes to snap back, and you have to hold on to it for a long time. And then because you're controlling it with the right stick, and David Cage had this brilliant idea of maybe the right stick is buttons. And so you do that instead of pressing buttons, you just point it in certain directions.
Yeah.
This studio is just operating on a level that we could never, ever fathom.
No, he wants to make it incredibly simple, right? The whole idea is to bring in this entirely new crowd to play these games.
This is the most inaccessible, unapproachable game.
So
Nothing about it makes sense. You're supposed to walk around a space with no objective at all until a dot appears somewhere and point the stick, hopefully in the direction that the game assumes that dot is in, which is not always accurate. You have to fight by also just sort of predicting where you think Jodie is going to move her arms.
David Cage was able to get both Elliot Page and Willem Dafoe. How did that happen?
I mean, I think it was just a success of Heavy Rain, and it was this idea.
It was the right time for games. They had enough money. Although this game, aside from publicity, apparently wasn't that much more expensive than Heavy Rain. which is surprising to me.
Are there any famous people in Heavy Rain?
No, I think the cast of Heavy Rain is just larger. I think they've really consolidated for this one.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of
actual
Europeans and Canadians mostly. I don't know what his why he keeps making things set in America and never casts Americans in them, except for Willem Dafoe.
and Elliot Page,
Canadian
from Nova Scotia.
And it should be noted, this game, of course, came out before Elliot Page came out, and the character that he played is a woman. We will be using she, her pronouns for the character of Jody. But of course, Elliot Page is a man who uses he, him, and they, them pronouns.
To give you a sense of like what other people in the video games industry were thinking at the time and what the critical consensus on David Cage was at this time, I would just like Josh, if you could read this quote I found from Warren Spector himself, the creator of Deus Ex, one of your favorite games of all time.
Why are you doing my favorite game of all time, period. Deus Ex.
Yes.
Why are you making me do this? The quote is, David Cage is a genius. If Tim Schafer isn't the best writer in gaming, David is.
Wow. There
He's
you
right
go.
about Tim Schafer.
Yes. Tim Schafer is a really good writer,
for the life of me, why he thinks that David Cage is any good at writing.
It was in the water. I don't know. It was just no one had done this, right? There is, I guess, something to be said for someone who just has this bold, lunatic imagination that David Cage has. You can see how much it's running on fumes in this particular game, but like, no one had made a game like Heavy Rain, and certainly no one had or ever will make a game like Indigo Prophecy.
There's a reason nobody ever made a game like Heavy Rain.
But I think still, Heavy Rain has like an idea inside of it that could work. It doesn't, but it could.
And I will argue that Beyond Two Souls also has an idea inside of it that could work.
Wrong.
But
I will argue against that.
I will also argue against that. David, where do you fall on this?
I think I said it earlier to AJ that I think that Heavy Rain is the best game that David Cage can make. I think that is the maximum of his capabilities. I think Beyond Two Souls, he's punching up. I think it's beyond him. It's beyond Two Souls for him to make this game. And while there's plenty of good ideas. I mean, but there's plenty of good ideas in a lot of shit. So like that's not a credit of anything. No. And so the fact that he can't execute, the fact that he fails to execute on all of these ideas is, I think, makes it a worse game. Yeah. Although, I mean, they're both terrible gaming experiences.
I don't want to like put them against each other.
For the record, AJ is outnumbered 3-1 on this. I just wanted to get that out there.
I think you are all forgetting how terrible it is to play Heavy Rain. I think you are all have all memory hold.
I'm sorry. It's better. It's better because as I talked about the dots here, right? You just push a stick in the direction of the dots. The Heavy Rain actually like shows you a thing on screen that tells you what direction you're supposed to do.
Right.
And it also allows you to move in the weirdest manner possible, where you press the R2 trigger as a gas pedal for your character, which it turns out is the only proper way to move characters in a David Cage game.
That's
because
true.
Pushing them with the stick is so much worse.
Disastrous.
The problem is, though, is that I think if you are to evaluate them the way that David Cage views them, which is like, I think you're right, is that David Cage doesn't want to be making video games. He wants to be making movies. Yeah. Heavy Rain's a bad movie. It's really
one of the
bad.
worst movies you could ever see. Yeah.
And at least in that way, Beyond Two Souls is like, okay, what the fuck is happening? But there's like a Wiseau-esque sort of like, okay, I'll watch this because I cannot look away. I just would find Heavy Rain so incredibly boring to watch as a movie.
That's interesting. I think that this is more boring than Heavy Rain. Because at least Heavy Rain bounces between the different characters, and here you're just stuck with this one really dull story.
That's, you know what? Okay, that's
told like non-chronologically, which
doesn't fix it.
It doesn't fix it at all.
It also doesn't add anything.
No,
I mean, we'll talk about that.
No, but it's so wild, right? Because we begin this game, we open Beyond Two Souls at the end of the game. You wouldn't
Right.
know that really unless you went back and played it. But like this is like because it starts with Elliot Page in a washing machine, right?
Yeah, there's it's the Super Mario Brothers 64 start screen. You get to stretch his face around. But yeah, you see this character, there's like scars, there's short hair, and then there's like crystals all floating around.
I was born with a strange gift. The ability to see what no human being has ever seen before. It's all mixed up in my head. The images, the sounds, the smell.
Oh, those are 3 of the 5 senses.
I need to remember.
Why?
Put things in order right up to this moment.
Why?
Remember who I am.
Well, this moment must be super important.
If I had to
Must
say
be.
how it all began,
The stakes could not be lower.
I might just as well start here.
Yeah, mine as well.
So many possible
Hey there, you are listening to a preview of a premium episode of The Worst of All Possible Worlds. If you'd like to listen to the rest of this, head on over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/worstofall. And you can listen to not only the rest of this episode, but our entire backlog of premium episodes, bonus episodes, and if you subscribe at the $10 tier, you will get an extra episode of the podcast every single month. Again, that is patreon.com/worstofall. Hope to see you there.